Hello again to all my beautiful individuals out there. Welcome back. And if this is your first time, just know that we have a flag burning series, and today we're going to be continuing it. Unfortunately, there's only 2 more flags left to burn, but hey, let's have a good time. Okay, so on this channel, the flags that I've burned typically aggravate people when they see me burning them. They get really angry and offended that I would dare burn their sacred flags. But hopefully, everybody will be in agreement that it's a good thing that I'm burning this flag. Because, you see, today, we'll be burning the UN flag. Now, what is the UN? Well, it stands for the United Nations. It's an international coalition of most of the nations around the world, and basically they are collectively, at least this is their claim, working towards world peace. So on the surface, it appears to be a far leftist organization. This, however, is false. You see, truthfully, the United Nations is not a far leftist organization. The United Nations is actually a bottomist organization, or an external organization. Now, these terms may sound weird or odd to you. That's because they are terms of my own creation. I created these terms in association to my own political theory called the political wheel. You can actually go on Amazon.com and purchase my book, The Political Wheel, Ending the Left-Right Paradigm, where I talk about this in further detail. But if you don't care to read a book, you don't want to spend a couple bucks, just watch my videos on this channel. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm going to go over what a bottomist or an external ideology is. But to first understand that, you first must ask yourself, what is a centrist? What does it mean to be a moderate? Someone who is between the true left and right, not the fake left and right, often called Democrats or Republicans. No, the true left and the true right. It's a nationalist. If you are a centrist or a moderate, you are a milquetoast, fence sitter who just compromises for the greater good, then you're a nationalist. Because what is the greater good? Well, it's what's best for the nation, what's best for the nation's state. A nationalist is not ideological. They're not driven by this obsession with either security, like a left-winger, or liberty, like a right-winger. A nationalist is willing to find that compromise. The nationalist is willing to give up some securities and give up some liberties. The nationalist is willing to anger some collectives and anger some individuals. So the centrist just wants the nation to be better, wants the nation to be prosperous, to enjoy prosperity and tranquility. But if you're just to the left of it, you have an idea of how that prosperity and tranquility can be achieved, and it's through greater security. If you increase the size of the government, you can provide greater security for the people, and that will give the nation a better state of prosperity. On the other side, you have rightists who want the betterment of the nation. They want the nation to be prosperous and to enjoy tranquility. However, they have their own idea of how that can be achieved. They think if the government is smaller, if you shrink the government, then the people can have more liberty. And with that greater amount of liberty, the people can enjoy a greater amount of prosperity and tranquility. The left and the right both want the nation state to be prosperous. They just have different ideas of how to achieve it. The moderate centrist isn't really particular on which way works. They're more down to earth. They might think that, okay, well, this decade requires more security. But then in a decade or two, perhaps we don't need all that big government and security. Bring it back a little bit, give the people some liberty. They're willing to go either way. If you go further, if you go to the far left, the focus shifts away from what's best for the nation, and instead the focus is on collectives, or sometimes a single collective. This collective could be a sexuality or a race or even a religion. But the focus shifts from what's best for the nation state to what's best for collectives. If you go further in the other direction, to the far right, where I am, well then the focus shifts away from what's best for the nation and instead what's best for each individual. It doesn't matter what their sexual preference is, their gender, what their race is, what their religion is. It doesn't matter. Any of that doesn't matter. What matters is each individual is equal, and they're equally entitled to the same freedoms and rights as each other. Now this far left and far right way of thinking can lead to problems for the betterment of the nation. That's because the focus is not on the betterment of the nation. For the left, it's about certain groups. It might be about promoting a particular race, or it might be about promoting a particular sexual orientation or whatever. And this can cause problems for the nation state. And on the far right, where individuals like myself are, there's also problems. We focus more on ourselves and what we can do, and this causes a greater risk of physical or economic problems for people throughout the country. Now, if you go even further than this, you can go to the extreme left, which is something that's going to damage the country. It's going to destroy the nation state because you're so focused on getting power that the nation goes to shit. Or you can go the other direction to the extreme right, which is anarchy or anarchism, which is another way that you can damage the nation state because you're so focused on having so much freedom that you don't care about even the freedoms of other people. The extreme right says that my rights, my freedom is so important that I don't care about everybody else's freedoms. I can rob this person, kill this person, enslave this person. I can do whatever I want. Both the extreme left and extreme right harm the nation state. They shift away from not just the betterment of the nation, but they shift away from what's best for the collective or the individual. This is where this flag comes into play. Because beyond the extreme left and beyond the extreme right is something external. In fact, what is beyond the extreme left is the same thing you find beyond the extreme right. That's because the spectrum is not linear. It's circular. You have the center, the left and the right, the far left and the far right. You have the extreme left, the extreme right, and then one step further they merge again in the opposition of the center. At this step, this external ideology that is opposite of the center or opposite of the top is where you find the bottomist worldview. And if the center or the top is nationalism, then the opposite is globalism. This flag is the de facto symbol of globalism, of bottomism or externalism. The nationalist the moderate centrist, makes a compromise, takes the best elements of the left and the right, and brings them together for the betterment of the nation state. The globalists, they are not loyal to any left-wing policies or right-wing policies, but they are especially hostile towards the top or centrist or nationalist policies. Instead of taking the best of the left and the right and bringing it together for the betterment of the nation state, the globalists take the worst elements of the left and the worst elements of the right and bring them together to destroy the nation state. I, as a far rightist, am ideologically opposed to far leftists, and they are opposed to me. A basic rightist or a progressive or libertarian, they are ideologically opposed to the authoritarian nature of the extreme left. And the extreme left is ideologically opposed to the liberal nature of the right. A basic leftist, which is a conservationist or conservative or securitarian, is ideologically opposed to the anarchical extreme right. And likewise, the anarchical extreme right is ideologically opposed to the religious or societal or moral or legalistic structure of the left. However, we all are physically opposed to the globalist totalitarian nature. You see, there's actually a difference between authoritarianism and totalitarianism. You can take an authoritarian and put them in one room, let's say an apartment, and say that you have full control over this room. That this apartment is yours. You can do whatever you want in this apartment. Whatever you say goes in this apartment. You can design it in whatever way you want because you are the absolute authority in this apartment. And the authoritarian will be happy. But if you put a totalitarian in that position, they'll be happy until they realize there's other rooms in this grand apartment complex. And when they realize there's other rooms and they don't have control there, that's going to freak them out. That's going to infuriate them. It's going to motivate them. The authoritarian just wants authority. But the totalitarian wants authority in its totality. The totalitarian wants absolute control over everything. An authoritarian government is happy controlling everything in their government. But the totalitarians, they want to control the world. They want to control every country. These globalists are not loyal to any collective security or any individual liberty. They are not loyal to any nation or even humanity as a whole. The globalists seek to slit the throats of every nation on planet Earth, sacrificing us all on the altar of Gaia. These people worship the earth, and they openly confess that they want to see the human population of the earth shrink as close to zero as possible by any means necessary, including using vaccines. That's not my words. Those are the words of well-known globalist Bill Gates. If strengthening the national power of, say, China aids the globalist agenda, then they'll do it. If weakening the national power of the United States of America, for example, aids the globalist agenda, then they'll do it. If defending blacks in Britain, for example, aids the globalist agenda, then they'll do it. If butchering and enslaving blacks in Libya, for example, aids the globalist agenda, well, then they'll do it. If installing Hitler-hailing Nazis in somewhere like Ukraine, for example, aids the globalist agenda, well, then they'll do it. But on the flip side, if demonizing Hitler-hailing Nazis in somewhere like, I don't know, modern-day Germany aids the globalist agenda, then they'll do that too. The globalists are hypocrites by nature. They speak out of both sides of their mouth because they are not loyal to either side of your left-right spectrum, whatever it may be. The globalists are not loyal to this dogma, or this nation, or that nation, or this religion, or that religion. They are not loyal to any race, or gender, or anything. The only thing they are loyal to is gaining total power over the world. They're only loyal to the earth. The enemy of humanity is not left-wing or right-wing. They are an external entity waging a war on us all. No collective is allowed to have security from them. No individual is allowed to have the liberty to speak out against them. The globalists want borders, nations, and humanity to all fall. The extreme left wants absolute authority over a nation state by bloating the government as big as they can get it, while the extreme right wants the fall or collapse of a nation state so that they can have the freedom to do whatever they want. The globalists, on the other hand, want every nation to fall so that they can have absolute power, so that they can implement their own one world government from the ashes. I'm going to step aside and let you look at this flag one more time while I finish up what I have to say. Now, these globalists, they deceive the simple-minded people of the world. They tell them that they're working towards world peace. And how are they going to achieve that? Well, if we just simply drop the borders of the world and end all these individual nation states, well then, there couldn't possibly be any wars. If there's no nations to fight each other, then how could you possibly have a war? What they don't tell you is if there's only one nation in the entire world, where exactly are the refugees of that one world nation supposed to run if that government becomes tyrannical and begins trying to mass eradicate them? Better yet, what other nation is going to confront this tyrannical one world government and is going to liberate you from the concentration camps your one world government has put you in? What you must understand is it's the globalists who are destroying our planet. And then they tell you it's your fault because you're a human. They tell you to hate yourself, that you're a cancer on the earth, that you're a virus, that you're a parasite that needs to be purged for the betterment of nature, for the betterment of the world. They pollute the oceans and then say, you, the human, did that. They bomb countries and then they say, you, the human, did that. They pollute the air we breathe. And then they say, you, the human, did that. They burn and lumber forests. And then they say, you, the human, did that. Don't you understand? They point to all their actions and then say it's justification to mass exterminate you. To mass exterminate the human race. But when you build a business, they say, oh, you didn't do that. When your national heritage or your race or whatever does something extraordinary, invents the light bulb or builds pyramids, they say, oh, y'all didn't do that. When humanity lands on the moon, they say, oh, you didn't do that. And in fact, you should never try to do that again. You see, these totalitarians, these globalists, they want control over the entire world. They want a one world government. Because that's all there is right now. You see, this isn't just a planet. This is a prison planet. We are trapped here on the earth. And as long as all of humanity is here, then these totalitarians only have to control one planet. And so that's what they want. They want a one world government. But should humanity begin to go off planet and colonize and start creating nations on, say, Luna, our moon, or maybe on Venus, planet Venus, or planet Mars, maybe on the moons of Jupiter, or maybe the moons of Saturn. Or hell, maybe we actually start creating nations one day all the way out there on planet Pluto. Or just have little floating habitats, just floating around out in space, some spaceships, where people are born on the ship, they live their whole lives on the ship, and they even die on the ship. Maybe they're super ships, and they're considered, they consider themselves their own roaming nations out in space. Whatever, I don't know. If that happens, these people, they will not want one world government anymore, because that won't be enough. Because people will be going out into space outside of their control. They can't have that. Because they want totality in their authority. If we start going off world, these people are going to start calling for a one celestial government. They'll say that one government should control what's going on not only on Earth, but on Mars, and on Venus, and on Europa, and wherever else people are living. They'll say one government needs to control it all. And you see, this has actually already been popping up. I was listening to a little thing online where there were Black Lives Matter supporters. And they were getting angry about the idea of not enough black people going to Mars. Really? Don't you understand? Like, these people, they want so much authority that they want to be able to dictate while on Earth what the fuck is going on another planet out in space. They don't just want to tell you what to do here on this planet, even though they might be on the other side of the planet. No, they want to tell people on another fucking planet how to live their lives. In this battle against the globalists, all of us, left, right, far left, far right, and even extreme left and extreme right, whoever you are, wherever you are, in America or even outside, in nations around the world, we all must stand united for the right to stand divided. As a far rightist, I cannot oppose anything greater than that of the ideology of the far left. However, I understand that if some other nation wants to be far leftist, they have a right to do that. If a nation wants to be a communist dictator hellhole, then they can do that too. If some nation wants to be an anarchical, free roaming, extreme right, just failed state, have at it, man. Y'all do y'all's thing. But the people who are there, if they don't want to be there anymore, they should have the right, the not just freedom, but the privilege and ability to say, I'm going somewhere else. If where you're living has too much freedom and you want more security, you should be able to go somewhere else to find that security. And if where you're living has too much security, you should be able to leave there to go find somewhere else that has more liberty. If you don't like this language or this culture or this religion, you should be able to go somewhere else and enjoy other things, varieties of things. But the globalists want to destroy it all, burn it all to the ground, and in its ashes birth one united thing, one bland, just shit. It is my belief that the United Nations should be dissolved. And the headquarters in New York City, the whole fucking building should be demolished. I believe every national flag that's on the flagpoles around the headquarters of the UN should be taken down from their poles and respectfully folded and then sent back to the nations they represent. I believe that the knotted gun statue should be carried off on a flatbed to thunderous cheers by the New Yorkers and eventually melted down. I believe the UN headquarters building should have a controlled demolition, or as Larry Silverstein might put it, pulled, and put it in his fucking footprint, and then, once all the debris is all cleaned up, designate the land to be a small federal park. How about that? Then, I believe the melted, knotted gun statue should return to the park, but in the shape of a flagpole. And on that flagpole should be a fixed American flag. This flag would not be able to be hoisted up or even hoisted down to fly at half staff. Instead, it would have two hooks at the top, accessible with a man lift, and the flag would fly high and proud at all times. I would want it to be a national landmark, equal to that of the Statue of Liberty. This flag would be the national beacon, a symbol of our national sovereignty, our strength, as well as our respect for the right of every other nation to live as they see fit. It would also be a reminder to future generations that an abomination, a globalist entity known as the United Nations, once called that piece of land home. And because of the individuals and collectives from nations around the world all speaking up against it, the United States heard that plea for justice. That the United States of America struck down the vile creation it spawned in the name of national liberty, national security, national tranquility, and national sovereignty. I'm not going to go on about the crimes and vile of the UN. I'm not going to talk about how they allow the communist Chinese to have any role in how their organization works, or how, I don't know, a religious dictatorship like Saudi Arabia, which commits crimes against humanity regularly and goes about carrying out public executions, how they allow a government like that a seat on the Human Rights Council. I'm not going to go on about all of these things because I think you know about the evils of these people. You know about the horrors, the nightmarish dream that these people fantasize about. From the members of government around the world calling for New World Order this and New World Order that. You had I think it was the Prime Minister of Australia talking about it just a couple of weeks ago. And it isn't a new thing. It's something that's been going on for many, many decades. All the way back to people like Ronald Reagan talking about how we all are members of a one world. And people like Obama talking about how he's a citizen of the world. As an American, my credo is Americanism, not globalism.